Okay, this is a difference quotient problem, and we've done several of these throughout the this semester and last. We're going to do another one. We're going to do it on this particular function here, f of x equals 7x squared minus 5. And this, of course, is the equation for the difference quotient. Remember when you're doing this that what the difference quotient calculates is the instantaneous slope at any given point on the function. This is going to be some kind of parabola, and so its slope at any given point on the graph is going to change. There's going to be parts where it's steeply negative, there's going to be at least one place where it's 0, and other parts where it's steeply positive. So the slope changes. So when we're done, we're going to get another equation that will help us calculate the slope at any given point, or the average slope between 2 points with a range of h. That's what the h stands for, is the range between the 2 points you're interested in. So between x and some h, what is the average slope between those points? And then, of course, if h is 0, we get the instantaneous slope. So this problem, and I think the reason that it persists in our curriculum for college algebra, it's been in there as long as I've ever taught college algebra, is for this reason. It actually tests a number of college algebra skills, and we'll just run through those. They're right here. Substitution, an evaluation of a function. You're not just substituting a number, you're actually substituting, in some cases, this binomial into an equation. You're replacing an x with an x plus h, and doing that correctly, this is one of the main areas where students have trouble with these problems. Finally, expansion. If you're going to put an x plus h into an x that's being squared, you're going to have some expansion. You've got some distribution that you have to do. There's a lot of cleanup on this problem. And finally, a lot of simplification. And it's just a lot of attention to detail. It's the kind of thing that math departments around the country, it's what they look for in their students, is are they paying attention to the details? Are they being careful about their work and doing all these things correctly? So the problem catches a lot of things. So let's get started. First of all, let's talk about the substitution part of it. We have two different things to calculate. One is f of x plus h, and then we have to subtract f of x, which is really negative f of x. You can think of it as that. So we have to basically fill in this equation form using this equation. So first, let's get this f at x plus h. Well, if this is our f of x, f at x plus h is going to look like this. I'm going to start up here, 7. Everywhere there's an x, we replace it with x plus h. X plus h squared minus 5. So this right here, this part right here, is f at x plus h. Okay? Don't include any of this stuff, right? Don't try to keep this x in there as an additional x somewhere. I see that come up. Replace the x with x plus h. Okay? If you see an x, replace it with x plus h. Now subtract the original f of x. Well, the original f of x is 7x squared minus 5. I'm putting it in parentheses because I know I'm going to need to distribute this negative when I'm done, or as I'm processing through it. Finally, everything is over h. Okay? Now we get into the expansion, distribution, and simplification phase. I'm going to scoot this up a little bit, give us a little more room to write. If you have to do this x plus h squared off on the side, that's perfectly fine. I've got no problem with that. We'll do it. But x plus h squared is x plus h times x plus h. Okay, and if you're one of the students that tend to forget the middle term when you're doing these binomial expansions, then by all means, go off to the side, write it as x plus h times x plus h, and then do all your distributions. You get x squared plus xh plus hx plus h squared. And then you got to recognize that x times h and h times x are the same, so what you have is x squared plus 2xh's plus h squared. Now, looking at the original problem, we're multiplying that whole thing times 7. So if you're off to the side working, you might as well go ahead and do that distribution. So 7x squared plus 14xh plus 7h squared. Give yourself lots of room. Go ahead and expand things out. Take your time. Make sure you get it right. So then all of this, of course, this is just this part of it. We now have to subtract the 5. Okay, don't want to forget that minus 5. So we're going to write this up here. 7x squared plus 14xh plus 7h squared minus 5. Now I'm going to distribute this negative, so negative 7x squared or minus 7x squared plus 5. Now I've expanded all this. I've distributed this. I've got all this, and I still have it all over h. And now I can come through and I can start doing some simplification. For instance, my 7x squared and has a negative 7x squared there. The negative 5 has a positive 5. Okay? So let's go ahead and write this, and then we'll take it in one more step at least. So now we're down to 14xh plus 7h squared all over h. Now there's a couple different ways. There's an h in every term in the top. There's actually 2 h's here, 1 there. So we can actually divide out an h. The way to think of that is if we take an h out of the top, now you can see how these h's cancel out quite cleanly, and it leaves us with 14xh plus 7h. And that's the answer we're looking for. Okay, now don't worry about the fact that, yeah, you could, wait a minute, that h went out. 14x plus 7h, yes, you could take a 7 out, but don't worry about that. This is what we're looking for. 14x plus 7h is the correct answer for this problem. So that's all you have to do. The thing with these problems is more attention to detail and performing these basic operations, binomial expansion, watching your negatives, distributing things, distributing this 7. Don't distribute it over the negative 5. It doesn't belong there. Those kind of things are things you want to watch out for. And if you do all those things right, and as long as you don't make a mistake like I did in the end, you're going to be fine. And again, if you show me all this work on the test, even if you did make this little error here, right, because I can see that's clearly, you had it correct up here, I would clearly see that, and I would understand that was just simply an error in rewriting something. That is not a problem, so don't panic about that. Worry about the big stuff, not a big problem.